Hello everyone, and welcome to the first of its kind parents uni prep workshop, if we can call it that, titled Things I Wish I Knew Before I Sent My Child Abroad. My name is Nosimilo Kumalo, and I'm with the Advancement Office. Today, I will not be a moderator, Yael will be, but I just wanted to have a couple of tech pointers before we start. We're lucky to have a panel of four parents and alum today. As you get in, if you haven't already, please keep your microphone muted. You can have your video on and off depending on your preference. If you have any questions as we move along, feel free to either type them in the chat box or send them privately to Yael or myself, and they will be addressed. Otherwise, or if you have any tech questions as we go along, feel free to send me a private message as well, and I'll take care of that. Otherwise, I'll hand it over to Yael, and I hope that we have an insightful hour and a bit this afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Nosimilo. My name is Yael, and I am an IB2 mother for the first time in my life. Every evening we look at the computer and says we have to do the financial aid, and we look at each other and we go to Netflix, and come the next day and we're looking at the financial aid, and now we're doing something else. And have you finished the essays? Did you do this? Did you do that? Which universities? Even deciding on the universities, although I'm trying not to get involved in that, but that's quite a mission. And a while ago, we discussed with the engagement office about idea of let's talk about it. Let's ask other parents. Let's see what's institutional. Please just mute yourself if you're not me at the moment. And the idea of hosting a parents chat with some panelists came up. And I'm so happy that we eventually found a date, and that some of you are, all of you are here. There was a bit of a glitch. The newsletter said that the meeting starts at 3:30, so we might have more people joining us later, but nevertheless, we're going to start right now. Let me introduce you our panel. We have, I'll start what I can see on my screen from the left. I have Tracy Stewart. Tracy, which is our principal PA and been with the school for many years, actually sent quite a few kids over to the US. So she's here now as a mother who has been doing the financial aid and all sorts of things. We have Fiona Millen. She's with me at the PSA. Her daughter went to the States a couple of years ago. She's also here as an experienced mother. Then we have Sharon. Sharon, I'm going to read quickly what I've got about you. But Sharon joined us as an alum. She finished about 8 years ago. She's where I am now. She was there 8 years ago. She obtained a bachelor's degree in international studies from Earlham College in the Midwest of the United States. Upon return, she worked for the American Embassy in Eswatini as an education US advisor. In this position, she gave advice to Swazi students waiting to study in the US and prepare them for travel and living abroad. So we're looking forward for all that knowledge that you're holding in there. Miss Martins, that is her name, Sharon Martins, has a wide knowledge based on living and studying in the US, based on personal experience, as well as her professional work. More recently, Miss Martins moved back to Eswatini from London after pursuing her master's degree in international studies and diploma from the University of London. That year-long experience further prepared Miss Martins for our engagement today, which I'm very excited about it. Thanks for joining us, Sharon, because you're like 8 years out of Waterford, but you're still coming back to help us here. We have Welile. I can't see your face, Welile, but I know you are with us. That's you. Oh, okay, hi, because now your name's gone. So now Welile is a mother full of experience who did not know what the heck she was doing when she sent her daughter away and lived apart from her daughter. So she managed to pull strings around the world and get the Global Village to help her raise her daughter. Thank you for joining us as well. V is hiding here. I've got one VE and one V. So one of you is V de Graaf. She will listen and chip in when she can. V's got Ruben up at College of Atlantis at the moment. And she's my financial aid rescuer at the moment. So thank you, all of you, to join in with us today. We did not prepare a set questions ready, but what I'd like you to start with, maybe one by one, is what for you, give me one thing. I'll let you say one thing which you think is the most important thing at the moment for a parent that's supposed to send their kids abroad. Anybody would like to start, or shall I nominate you? Fiona, you're moving your hair. What's the most important thing you think we should look into now?
Okay. I think from so Carrie-Anne, it's a couple of years ago, she was accepted into Vassar College, which is a liberal arts college just in Poughkeepsie, just outside New York. And I suppose my husband had spent a year actually in the States, so it wasn't like we weren't familiar with the US. I've never been. But I think the biggest thing for us was the cultural difference. There was a massive cultural difference from the way we live, what's important to us, the way we engage with our children, the way our children engage with us and the community, and what my daughter found in the college. I'm not saying that this is necessarily in America, this is just in this college. And I think she had and it probably happens at a lot of universities, but I think it was quite it took quite a lot of getting used to for her initially, and she has spent time overseas as well. She's lived in 2 other countries apart from Swaziland, so it's not like she has been completely insulated in Swaziland, but it's still a huge cultural difference, and I think that that's something that people need to be aware of, where they choose to send their children and what the college represents. So we come from probably a more intrinsically conservative environment here, and the college she went to was not at all. I actually commented to her that I have never ever heard of such a spread of complicated people, I think, that she became friends with her. And we weren't expecting that at all. She coped with it well, but it was just different.
Oops. Thanks, Fiona. How did you mitigate that? You just got used to it, eased into it, or how did you manage to get over that shock? Presume rescue remedy is not what helped you this week.
Yeah, no. I think we raise quite resilient children in this part of the world. I think and as I said, she had lived in other places, so she, I think, was able to adapt. It was hard for her at times, and she found it a bit overwhelming at times, but she was able to, she didn't make any judgments, and she went in with a very open mind, and so she wasn't putting any judgment on her engagements there. It did cause us a little bit of, sorry, that's another thing as well, is that one thing you need to get used to when the children do go away, particularly Carrie-Anne's college, is that you have no direct contact with the college at all. They engage with the children, the students, and they don't engage with the parents, bar the financial aid portion of it. And that was also very alienating, particularly as we weren't able to go over and kind of be with her. So it was a foreign environment for us as well. And so we have to rely quite a lot on her resilience, her maturity, her ability to cope on her own. So there is that level of sort of trust and engagement that you do need to have with your children.
Thank you very much, Fiona. Sharon, what would for you would be the most important thing you think?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So I think two things. The first thing is just to maybe speak to what Fiona is saying. I think part of it is a mental health component that I really think that we need to do a lot better in preparing students for, in terms of being able to be incredibly self-aware to the point where they know to ask for help when they need help. And I think because we live in a society that is very close knit, and you know, some of the students will be coming from very close knit families, from very supportive environments. Waterford itself is very supportive through IB and the preparation process, and then being thrown into a space where, you know, some of these campuses are maybe 10,000 people, 15,000 people. Smaller campuses will be 3,000 or 5,000 people. But that's still a lot of people versus Waterford, which is, you know, very community based and very close knit. And so I think knowing when you need help and knowing when to reach out is really important, and just engaging with our students before they go on. If you're feeling like you need to speak to someone, there's no shame in doing that. And mental health is something that we really need to as parents, engage consistently with our students. And I think the second thing, also semi-related to that, is being able to talk to students about work, life, and social life balance, right? Because students are not going to be on campuses and just going to class and then heading back to their rooms. You want to encourage your child to participate in social activities, or, you know, academic clubs, or sporting activities and things like this. And what that does is it helps the student to have outlets also related to mental health, right? So that when life gets incredibly difficult academically, or they start missing home or things like this, they're able to have outlets that are healthy outlets that they've kind of developed even during the honeymoon period, when they're still arriving on campus and everything is still perfect and great. You know, you want to encourage them during that time to seek out those activities, so that when things get tough, they now already have those outlets. So I think mental health is really, really important. And then talking to students about what to expect as a well-rounded experience, not just the studying part of it, but, you know, if they're going to be having a part-time job on campus, talking to them about how to handle that. If they're going to be, you know, going out with friends and socializing, talking to them about balancing all of that so that their life is really well-rounded. Yeah, I think those two things to begin with.
Thank you very much. So your mitigation is just encourage them to go out there and actually experience everything, so they can be more resilient when the hardship meets them.
Yes, and I think early on is important, because at the beginning, at least from my experience and a lot of other students, the first semester is hard, but it's also still exciting because you're in this new environment and everything is great. And so that's the time to really build that support system for yourself, when everything is still nice and rosy and you like everyone right there. The end of the first semester and maybe the end of the first year into your second year, the honeymoon period kind of dwindles. But if you've done the work early on, I think that you are a lot less likely to go down a downward spiral.
Thank you very much. Tracy?
So I would say, similar to Fiona, we tend to think of the US as a whole. Every state is very different. Every college is very different. I've had two children, one gone through the system and one in the system, who have had two entirely different experiences based on the college and based on the state. So I would say very often we are driven by the scholarship offer as to what we accept. It is a part of life. However, I would encourage, before you make a decision, to really look into the college as an individual college and the state. Look at the state itself in terms of living and laws. Like Fiona said, whether it's a conservative state, whether it's a not so conservative state, because they are going to go out there and they are going to meet people that are local, and they're going to come across experiences sometimes that are not so great. I would say, this might be a bit controversial, but I think at Waterford, we tend to give our children a false sense of security, especially those of us that grew up in Swaziland, and our children grow up in Swaziland. They go out there thinking that the world is what Waterford is what Swaziland is, where everybody's accepted. And that's not the state. That's not the case when you get to the States. One of the things I would encourage students is to be in touch with students from Swaziland who are at those colleges, because those are the students that are going to give you the real deal. And believe me, they're not going to hide anything. They're going to tell you exactly what it's like, the good and the bad. And I think that's really good for the kids to know before they go. Another two important things, I think, is being in touch with the international office. The international office is often incredibly supportive of UWC children.
The international office?
The international office at the colleges are often incredibly supportive of UWC students. And it's imperative to have a good relationship with them, because they're going to be the go-to. As Fiona said, the colleges don't involve the parents in anything, actually. I think maybe if the children went against the law, that would be the only time we would hear from them. But they do not correspond with the parents at all. So the international office becomes the go-to for the children. In addition to the international office, I would like to encourage all the students when they go. Most of the colleges have got a host family program, what we call a link program. Also, I think very important, imperative, it is very expensive for the kids to come home for every holiday. So it really helps if they have a host family. And any of you here that are link families will know that it's a home away from home. I find what happens quite often with our students when they go across, the host family system is part of the initial orientation program. They're very overwhelmed with everything else that's going on, and they often will say, no, thank you. And that's a bad idea, because there are, like Waterford, there are limited host families out there. So you need to grab one as soon as you can.
Thank you very much. So you're talking about feeling at home and at ease by trying to find a host family, by using the international office to support you. And the most important thing, and we do have it in Waterford, I don't know if all the parents know, we have a program called Ambassadors. Maybe Nosumilo, maybe you want to say something quickly about, are you still with us? Do you want to say something about the ambassador program? Because that really speaks to what Tracy just said. Are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Aya. And yes, please, to the ambassadors. So what we've tried to do as the Advancement Office is create a program where we have students who are currently at those universities or who recently graduated from different universities in South Africa, in the US, and in the UK, who are either international students from Waterford or who are international students from other countries. And what those students are there for are those questions that Tracy was talking about. We connect them. So if students are interested in that, we actually have a page, or rather we have a website, and I'll share that in the comments as well. So please encourage the students, or rather your children, to go through the website and see what colleges have university ambassadors, because these are people their age or very close to their age who will give them the honest answers, who will tell them exactly what's going on. And that way, you're not just hearing information from the advisors or from the representatives of that university, but from people who also have the UWC experience or who also have that international student experience, and therefore can relate with you and can answer your questions more honestly and more transparently than sometimes the advisors do, because sometimes the advisors are trying to sell their university more than anything. So I'll leave the website on the comment section. Thanks, Yael.
Thank you very much, Nosimilo. Wilile, share with us your knowledge and what was the most frightening thing that hit you hardly at the beginning, and how did you manage to overcome it?
Okay, so hi everybody. I think the previous contributors have made pretty valid points, and I can relate to most of them. I mean, you need to pair yourself up with a college that kind of works with your family system, your values. Also have this kind of intrinsic grounding within your child, to make sure that they've got that resilience when they're away from home. Because the minute they go through the check-in at the airport, that's it. You are pretty much this side and they are the other side, and they are literally on their own. And also, then you also need to have a network, I think, which is what Tracy was talking about now. So that whole network, that was something very valuable for our case. I think what I would like to add then on top of that was, for me, what I tried to get Dema to do was to get herself to understand the American landscape. So via news, get to understand what are the key things that are happening there. This was before she was going to go, because she's literally got about another, 5-8 months before she actually leaves. So that's a good time to get to understand the environment you're going into, and not just federal news, but also the state news. So she was going to Massachusetts, understand what is key in Massachusetts, understand the formal news, but also do the social media, get to understand it from the outside, looking in, because the minute you get there, you're now inside the thing, and your perspective is going to be very tainted, because now you're in it. But at least if you've got some understanding of what you are going into, it may not be true, but have something. Don't just go in blind and just think, you know what, like I think another speaker said earlier, that in Waterford and Swaziland as a whole, we kind of have this frame around the children, and they seem to be at peace with the world as it is, but it isn't quite so when you cross the borders or wherever else. So I think what I would like to then add is just have that understanding, even though you may have traveled. When you're traveling as a tourist, and just going on holidays and that sort of thing, it's a different thing than when you're going to move into a place. So if you have your mindset, as both parent and child, have your mindset now thinking that way. I was obsessed with news that had to do with the US. I think I got to a point where I was starting to freak her out. She didn't want to now have anything to do with me and those conversations, because I just needed to understand where she was going, particularly because of which was my biggest fear, and how I then overcame it. I'll discuss just now. My biggest fear was, she's a Black child going into an environment where we predominantly hear about Black violence towards Blacks. And that for me was a massive thing, because I thought, okay, sure, something happens, right? I mean, we all take insurance, but we're not planning on dying. But something happens. I can't be there in 2 hours. I can't be there in 5 hours, right? So I need to make sure that at least what I know is something that can prepare my mind. It drove me crazy, and it might drive you crazy, but I always say rather safe than sorry. So following the news then becomes a second thing for you. I mean, at the time when she left, Donald Trump was coming in, and Hillary had lost, and she was going into a college where Hillary was the alumni. So the atmosphere there when she walked in was kind of, right, because everyone was like excited, this is happening. And then it didn't. So she goes in and she picks up on this emotion. If she doesn't have the kind of resilience that Sharon was talking about, then she's just going to think, okay, you know what? doomed, all be gone. I am doomed. We are all doomed. But it's just an example. But certain things happen that will affect the child, and it will affect you 1,000 kilometers far away. And for me, then leading to my next point, what I found was very, very helpful was keeping in contact. Not being here the whole time, but like just being available. And the time difference will kill you, but just be available. So so if she wanted to talk, which was say it's 2 in the afternoon for her, it's evening for me, and I literally had to drop everything and just be present, because that basically meant she needed. If she didn't need, she wouldn't have called. Hence that whole mental health that Sharon spoke about, and the whole network that you spoke about. I think, Tracy, we had a lovely host mom. She was absolutely amazing. I had conversations with her a couple of times when Dema arrived. That sort of thing, that's why for me the whole village thing is just the best way I can actually explain this. Once you can form a parameter around the village that's going to raise this one child, it takes away some of the strain that you are definitely going to experience as a parent as soon as your child crosses over on the checkpoint.
Thank you very much, Wilile. Wilile was talking about the importance of understanding the environment where your child is going to, and stay informed, because the more we know, the probably less anxiety we'll have. So find out the local news, the formal one, the social media one, to make sure that you know what's happening in the country, especially if there's a bit of tension between black and white, or men and women, or LGBT, or whatever going on in that state that might affect your child's life in the college. And keeping in touch with them and using the network, using the village. I have to apologize. I said earlier, the newsletter mentioned that the starting of the conversation is 3:30, yet the letter the parents received was 3 o'clock. And that's why we probably have people joining in now. We started the panel at 3, and we discussed what is the most important thing that they think that we need to know when we're sending the kids away. I wonder, V, do you have anything to add to that? Maybe something that wasn't said before?
Hi, yeah, you know what, so my experience is totally different than what I hear from here, because I think Ruvan, he went to a very small college. He's in Maine, he's at the College of the Atlantic, so that is northeast, it's right against the Canadian border. Yeah, I think there's 360 students in this college. And also they are all studying the same environmental sciences. That's the whole college is just for that, although different subjects, that doesn't matter. And he and at that time his girlfriend, they both were accepted at COA, so they traveled together there. So that was a little bit easier, but okay, Ruvan is quite an independent person. The one thing of the college at COA, they were amazing, and they with us the whole time in contact. So once again, you know, I've got a totally different experience. Like Fiona was saying, you know, your child, you don't actually talk to your child much anymore. The college is basically handling that side. I think things has changed. You know, yeah, Fiona has said, you know, a child's been many years ago there. So it's a very warm, friendly college. The thing that bowled Ruvan over, you know, we all like snow because it's very romantic. Heck, that's serious snow up there. So that was quite tough for him. Although he made the best of it. He found it difficult to express himself because he was the only Africa student at that time there. And yeah, as we all know, we raised in Swaziland, it's very close. However, 2 other students from Africa joined. One was from Namibia, and it was just a little bit close enough, you know, so that they got more or less the same experience, you know, from Africa side. and later on another student joined there. This was the first time, I do believe, that there were 2 students from Waterford that land up at this at COA. COA is also almost like a little island. When it's high tide, then it's the roads open. Otherwise, it's a bridge, because then they become a low tide. Sorry, wow, you see? I forgot to switch off my phone. Are you all smiling? No, you all look very serious still. Okay. Anyway, so bottom line is, what for me was difficult, it's the time zone. Well, Lily, what you were saying, make yourself available. And yes, we've had 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, the conversations, and it really bowled me over in the beginning. I was just informed before I came live that, Mom, I've just woken up and I'm tired of Zoom because of this COVID. He has been doing Zoom sessions. He actually indicated he was going to join us, but obviously I was had too much hope, high hopes for him. All in all, I've got amazing experiences. The only thing that I do find is where I get bowled over is the academic year, as we all know, is different. And then the next moment you just get this, please remember your deadline to pay is this day. And I don't always think that way, because I'm still thinking of the Swazi, our end of term, blah, 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 blah. And that catches us a little bit unaware. Other than that, really, it's such a small college that we don't really have any problems. We had good advice on what do you call those things, manuals that they have to use, the textbooks and so on. They've been using it through Amazon, and that's a trade, so you can use them for a term and then you can send it back again. So that was also quite a good saver on costing. The thrift shops and all those things helped us a lot, especially because we couldn't cater for that kind of weather that was going up there. But really, really, really honestly, he's got an amazing time. His 3rd year, has just started his 3rd year. And it's a good college, and we are constantly in touch, and even now more while we have the COVID. There's not really a section there where they have, like we have the link parents here, but they all manage to link up with somebody. And because Ruvan hasn't been home for 18 months, so yeah, he hops around and just makes the best of it, and that's basically what everyone else is doing as well. So there's a good community there. At COA or in the main area. Yeah, I think that's basically what I can say here. Thanks.
Thanks, Vi. So Vihi, you mentioning a different experience, small college with more attention to the parents as well, which is very nice. You ask us not to forget that we also need to get to the university and come back. So try and think about the fees, the flight and everything, and see if that can come into the financial aid. And definitely look at the weather. And if you're going to experience cold weather, you know, Manzini Market, Bend and Pick sometimes have amazing jacket for us, or wherever you are, just kind of come prepared. Thanks very much, Vi. Tracy, you had your hand on. Is it still, your hands up? Is it still fun? Okay, so the other thing that is really bothering us at the moment is deciding the university list. I don't know if the parents here already got their kids have their list completely full. I think we are still debating in 1 or 2. And I wonder if any of you, what's your take as a parent about joining into the decision, and how can we make a decision? Maybe 1 or 2 tips of how to decide which school suits my kid, or also whether we should actually be involved in that decision or not. Do you want to use the same? Yes, Tracy, go for it.
I would say you do pretty much want to leave it up to them, because they must go where they want to go. Obviously, for a lot of families, the financial aid offer is a deciding factor. The children have to respect that. But again, I'm going to say, when it comes down to making a decision, try and get in touch with the students that are at that college, because they are the ones that are going to help you with that final decision based on letting you know. So speak to, if you've got 3, for example, speak to students from UWCs, Waterford if possible, that are at those colleges, and get the true rundown from them. Also, I'm going to say is it's the students that are there that are going to tell you how the financial aid and the scholarship packages work, because 100% at one college and 100% at another college can also be very different, and that's my experience. So they're not lying when they say 100%, but it doesn't always cover everything. Yet at another college, it can cover everything. So an example is the amount you get to cover books. It will depend on the course of study. So it would also be really good if you could get in touch with somebody who's doing that actual course of study. Very often the financial aid doesn't cover all the books. And unlike V, not all the colleges have got that return book system or the thrift shops. Health insurance is another big one. The health insurance is part of the financial aid package. My experience, it covers very little. When you're earning emalangeni, it's not fun to pay a $200 medical bill, because that does come back to you. So I think and again, the children that are there are the ones that are going to be able to tell you, or parents that are here who have a child in a college that your child is interested in, I think can give you the lowdown more than you will find on the website, more than you will get from the university advisors, from the children themselves.
That's very important. And then can you get then your own medical insurance in the States? Are we allowed as tourists or students visa? Can we get another Swazimed equivalent, or whatever we get from the financial aid? That's what we covered with.
So as far as I know, no. As a foreigner, you can't sign up for a local medical, even when they're on a study permit. I might stand to be corrected on that. However, it's probably not affordable anyway. So generally what we do is anything that's not covered by the health insurance there, we have to pay.
Very important thing to notice. Wrote you down. Thank you very much, Tracy.
And maybe I'll just add on to that, and we're veering off a little bit from decisions, but one of my important points, I actually asked both my children what they would tell people that were going. And one of the things that we did was stock up and send them with basic medical supplies. So also because brands are different in the States. So for example, something like Med Lemon, you know, they were able to get that through without any problem because it's not scheduled medication. But just stuff like that can add up to a lot, and it's not covered by the health insurance.
Okay, I noted it down. Thank you very much. Well, Lily, you had your hand on. You're the next person to answer this question of how do we choose a school, and should we get involved in that decision?
I would also say try and take a back seat, because you're not the one going there. You're not the one who's going to experience things, and you don't want them to go there, have a bad experience, and then hate you even more than they probably already do. But of course, other things notwithstanding, I mean, you need to be sure that where they say they want to go, they're being covered, etc. So Tracy has mentioned all of those. What my one contribution fact would be, I had the best experience in her deciding, because I think when she got there in Form 1, she was clear what she wanted to do. She was going to go and study overseas. She wanted to go to 1, 2, 3 places, and one of these 3 places, and it didn't change. It was consistent, and that kind of guidance for us. My greatest thank you comes from your college advisor, Mr. Stora. Yeah. I think because Dema was in that advisory office, and they were constantly having these conversations, and he would challenge her, and he would push her here, push her there, and he'd say, okay, but this one I think you should do you want to think? So they had these massive conversations challenging her, just to make sure that the decision that she wanted, that she was making, was her decision. And it was a decision that was good for her. So my advice, and naturally then she would come back and she'd bounce these things off of us, and she'd bounce them off anywhere else. But I think the intellectual and the what's the word? I'm losing it. But the meat of it was in the discussions that she had with your college advisor. And so for me, I would then suggest, on top of everything else that you will be doing, there's a structure within Waterford that is there to support these kind of decisions and inquire in the kids' minds and make use of it. It's probably one of your valuable tools in your toolkit when you're making this decision.
Thank you very much, Wilile. There's something that I didn't mention at the beginning, and because many people joined, and then we should mention it also, the conversation is being recorded. So you guys just be aware of that, if you want to say something or not. Hugo, was your hand up as well? Would you like to ask a question? Hugo and Julie, one of you? I guess not. Okay.
Hi, yeah.
Hey.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Hi, Yael. Thank you so much. I had two questions actually. One was around your Link Parent program. Do these only exist in the US? If your kid's looking in places like Canada or Scotland or England, are there any such programs there as well? And then my second question was with regards to choosing a university. There's the tuition and then there's the cost of living. So a lot of the sites try and show the cost of living in those different areas. I just wanted to find out from parents, are those accurate, or are there other things you need to consider over and above what's shown on the sites? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hugo. Who would like to answer? Sharon, maybe you've got some experience with that, or someone else?
Okay, I can share a little bit about cost of living. And I will draw from personal experience, first in the UK and then also, first in the US and then also in the UK. I think whatever is shown on the website is not nearly everything that you need to think of. That's just baseline. And this is not to fault the universities to say they're lying or anything like that, but it's just, I don't think it's realistic for them to be able to really tell you everything that you need to know. So what I'm going to try and do is maybe try and walk you through what would be general costs that everyone would be aware of, and then some of the kind of miscellaneous things that might pop up. So I think first, with any kind of financial aid, you want to make sure that you understand how comprehensive it is. I think someone has already said, so if it covers tuition, health, accommodation, health insurance, and all of those types of things. You also want to think about very carefully about mode of transport to and from the college. And so if your student is going to be living on campus, the costs associated with transport to and from school are minimal, right? But students sometimes, as they grow a little bit older, now they want to move off campus and all of those things. So even as you're looking for accommodation options, you want to look at, is it on campus? Does that mean that they can walk everywhere, or is it off campus? And if it's now off campus accommodation, then there's stuff about transports and getting to and from school. You also want to think about, if it's not on campus, then there's other costs that are obviously associated with that living space. So getting internet, Wi-Fi, basic commodities and things like that. I always used to advise students to stay on campus for the first year, and it just makes things infinitely easier for the first year, right? As you get used to the place and the city and everything that's around, just stay on campus for the first year. And then as you grow older, you can incorporate the rest of those costs. The other thing I think Tracy already mentioned is about health insurance. Health insurance is a dribble in the US, to be honest, because like she said, what you get from the university does not cover everything. And so you want to make sure, and universities are not trying to trick you, right? So if you do probe and ask those questions, they will tell you the truth, but you want to make sure that you know what it is that is covered. And then books, someone already spoke about that. And also, if your student is going to be able to work on campus, that should be stated by the package that they get, right? So there's programs in a lot of the universities that students go to in the US that will allow for a work-study program. So your student is able to work for a certain amount of time. It's only up to 20 hours that they can work. And students all over the world do that. And it's completely okay. It's completely manageable. It won't affect their studies. But if that's income that's going to be coming in, what you want to be able to talk to your child about is managing those finances, right? And so are you going to be saving to come home? Or are you going to be, is that money for toiletries? Whatever the case may be, you want to make sure that if there is a little bit of extra income that will come, they know what to use it for, and that you've had a conversation with them about that. So the cost of living within the city as well, you want to check, like we've already said, that the US is very different, right? Even cost of living in each of the cities is going to be different. It's going to vary from state to state. It's even within the state, there's going to be higher end parts of the state, and then lower end parts of the state. So all of those things you want to really sit and think about intentionally. And then groceries. And so this is why I think Tracy keeps maybe saying you want to talk to people who already live there, right? So when I was moving to the UK recently, there was a whole network of people that said, look, for example, if you were in Swaziland, if you're a student, you can't really be shopping at Woolworths, right? Like, and it's very small tips like that that you will only get from people that live in that place. So they'll tell you where to go shopping. They'll tell you, oh, if you're trying to buy, coats and things like this is the shop to go to, and just kind of allow students to do that. So what the university will tell you on their website is as accurate as they can be. But what we keep going back to is the network of people that live in that place are able to give you a little bit more information on it. But the way that I used to ask students when I used to advise them, is to imagine themselves going through an entire day in a university campus, right? What are the things that you imagine you would need, and kind of take them through that mental exercise. If I go to class, this is what I would need, etc., etc., and then kind of try and do a mental picture in that way. You can ask the university advisors, your students can ask the university's advisors to give them a way of imagining a day. So say, what would a typical day for an international student look like? University advisors are able to do that from the other end, and they might be able to kind of give you that. And then a mental picture might help you to cost it a little bit better.
Thanks very much. What about food? Just a second, Fiona. I saw your hand, and I saw your hand, Tracy.
Can I just add, I actually was going to talk about food.
Okay, so I'll give it to you.
In terms of working out your cost of living, Sharon gave some very good points there. So as far as I know, all the colleges do have canteens, and that's included in the kind of the tuition and residence. And that's why, as Sharon says, it is a good idea for them to stay on residence. She said for the first year, as a mother, if you can make it happen for 4 years, it's definitely the cheaper option. But also keep in mind, so again, I've had 2 different colleges with 2 entirely different experiences. And one of the colleges, we were quite surprised when they closed for what they call their winter break or summer break or whatever it is, something that we know as a midterm break. And they often do close their dining rooms. So they will allow the students to stay, but they close the dining room. So then suddenly you have a child or a parent who hasn't figured that into the finances, and that can get quite expensive. Some of the colleges also charge for holiday stay. So we just recently had the COVID situation where the children could not travel and had to stay, and it cost a fortune to pay for that period of time while they were there. So those are all the extra expenses that won't be covered by financial aid that you really need to think about and save for.
Wow, that's amazing insight. Thank you very much. Fiona, you had your hand up about cost of living.
Yeah, okay, so you can't ever be absolutely finite in terms of what the financial contribution is going to be. Because I think back now, Carrie-Ann's college, they stayed on campus, they got food vouchers for all their meals. So there wasn't any of that concern about her being fed or anything like that. What I did find though, is that suddenly we got a phone call to say her laptop had broken. It had crashed, and then we had to scratch around and find money to send to her for a laptop. Then the phone crashed, and then so there are things that you can deal with in our environment. If Jonty's laptop crashed here, I know where to go and get one, and I know what it's going to cost me. Over there, she was scratching around for a secondhand one, and I think we landed up paying nearly $1,000 for something. So it's those sort of extra stuff that you almost need to have a contingency in a plan. And I think that took us by surprise. Then there was also definitely books were provided for on the financial aid, but we were still contributing to paying for books. The health insurance was also covered by the financial aid, and they will not get a visa without the health insurance. They have to show that in order to get their visa, if I remember correctly. Another thing to maybe have a look at is that on her campus, you could work 10 hours a week and get paid $8 an hour. But because it had a lot of international students, there wasn't necessarily enough work on the campus to accommodate all the students working 10 hours a day, getting $8 an hour. So it might be a good idea to inquire about that sort of ability to earn on campus. Because I mean, that goes a huge way on popping into town and buying some toiletries, or maybe getting a takeaway, or getting off campus, things that you don't have to cover. And I know that there were restrictions in terms of her hours, so she could get some for a bit, and then she couldn't get some. She did stay on campus the one summer semester, the one summer break, and she actually worked on campus as a guide for parents coming and looking around, and that was quite well paid, and it gave her some spending money. And I think the working on campus is not a bad thing as well, because it integrates them into the campus experience, and they get to, like, she worked in the admin office for one of the sections of time that she was there, and actually saw the whole admission process, and she found it quite a good experience, and quite good experience for her work-wise as well going forward. But it definitely, if you think that that your contribution after financial aid is the end of it, it's not. You definitely do have to have contingency money. And I can tell you now that there's nothing worse than a phone call and going, I am so homesick, I need to come home, and having to scratch around and find an air flight or something like that. It happens, particularly over Christmas. Okay.
Thanks, Fiona and Tracy, for adding. Sharon, you can also ask us about the linked parents. Is it, Sharon, from your experience, is it impossible also in the UK, somewhere else? Does anybody have kids that went to somewhere else around the world? What do you know about linked parenting, what we call linked parenting?
So my experience in the UK was short. It was just a year. That was kind of chopped down by COVID as well. But the university that I went to was University of London School of Oriental and African Studies. So SOAS is the shorter version of it. And we had a version of that, although it wasn't link parents in the way that I remember it at Waterford. And I mean, I lived at home throughout my Waterford experience, but I do know friends who had link parents. But we had a version of it where you could visit a family for over a weekend and things like this. I forget what it's called. But I know a lot of the universities in the US have a program like that through their international students. Now, it might also differ because it was at a master's level. So I might, if I can find information about it, if it exists for undergraduate students and if it is a longer term commitment. But what that program for us did was you were able to go out and meet a family that lives, maybe I was in London, so maybe in Scotland, for example, and spend a weekend with them, and it just kind of exposed you to a different part of the UK that I would not have experienced if I was in London. But I don't know if that's uniform across universities, but I can certainly find out if that's information that would be valuable, yeah, for the UK.
Thanks, Sharon. I also presume that the admin office or the, what did you call him, officer, some kind of an officer, I'm sure these guys can help with that question when it comes to a certain university, what program they have. The valid question to ask. The question we started was can we help the kids to decide, in tips about how to decide them? I think everybody answered in the panel, am I right? Yeah, we did. There's some questions from the parents, then I think, let me read them and then tell me, they choose who wants to answer, who feels strong enough about answering them. Gertrude is asking if you can also talk a little bit about security. Are all the campus, sorry, Tracy, you want to say something?
That's fine, go ahead. I will answer the one, if that's okay, if everybody else is okay with that, from Tembega. But let's go according to what they are in the chat.
All right, let's start so we can tick them off. So security, how secure are kids on campus? Especially, maybe let's ask about sexual harassment. Let's ask about, I don't know, Black Lives Matters. Are we sending them, is the campus secure enough, you think? Or is it too, I mean, maybe it's a too large general question to ask. Maybe it's something we have to ask the ambassadors. Yes, Fiona.
I think it very much depends on what campus you're going to. The campus that Carrie-Anne was part of was a very caring campus. So she was there when Trump was elected, and they were actually even provided with counseling on the campus because they were so aware of what the trauma that a lot of the children were the students were going through and things like that. So I think it really, and she spoke a lot about campus security. I mean, they got up to all sorts of shenanigans. I know they did, and they were probably doing things that they shouldn't be doing, but there wasn't a sense of, there wasn't a sense that they had, the sense that I got, she spoke, is that people were there to protect them on campus, not that they were threatened at all. And I mean, to be quite honest, from some of the stories I've heard, I'm surprised that the security was so good. But she never mentioned that. Going out, though, because Vassar is a liberal arts college attached to Poughkeepsie, which is a working class town. And there there were issues there attached to going in and out of campus there. But that would be something that you would need to, and also going into New York and things like that, you would need to have that discussion with them. But certainly on campus, we never had any issues at all. She never had any issues at all.
And this is another reason I say be in touch with the international office, because the international office are very tuned into the local town, and are the ones that will give the students advice as to say, now is not a good time to go off campus, or you should stay on. And some colleges are stricter than others in terms of outings. It's very often the individual colleges, But again, the international office can give good information to the students. That's kind of like their protective umbrella.
And maybe we're going to go straight to you because I see your hand is up, but you mentioned earlier, follow up the news, follow up the social media, find out what the sense of security and what's happening on the campus. But maybe you want to add some more. Yes, Wulile?
Yes. So, okay, fair. I'll probably be speaking about one side of things. Dema went to a women's college. So there was also that sense of just this girlhood that was around them. But what you always made sure was the campus security was always aware, and there's certain times when they wouldn't allow them to be going out of campus. And just being in tune for the child, just being in tune with what parameters have been set around for security. Because yes, true, they'll do things as they want to, when they want to, and that's, I think all of us did as we were growing up. But and if you as a parent have some understanding of how these things work, so if you know that they've got campus security, and if you know that they've got transport that takes them from the campus into a town or city, wherever they are, and brings them back, at least you've got that sort of peace of mind, knowing that they can go back and forth with trusted kind of transport and security. And so it's probably two conversations back, but this hit me for when we're talking about expenses. When Emma was flying over, what I realized, I don't know whether all banks do it, but the bank that I'm at, when I paid for her ticket, they advise that I pay via credit card, because then you get insurance for a year. You get some, as basic as it might be, but I mean, if you're going away and you're not sure what the insurance cover is going to be, that might be something you want to look at with your bank, and how they can help with that, depending on which card you're using to pay for transport, for her flight.
That's very valid. Thank you. You know, I'm thinking, if we speak about security and stuff like that, just a second, one of the things that really frightened me, in coming from Waterford, which is very protected environment, in Swaziland in general, I don't know where the other people around here are from, it's drugs and alcohol and things like this. Especially this year, IB, because of COVID, they could not go out clubbing. They did not have a big party where they smashed out the whole house and had to deal with the consequences later at school, thing that happened before. So this year is very, I don't know. So I don't know if there's an answer for that. And I think I probably have to trust my son, but it's really something that bothers me a lot, is the massive exposure to drugs, sex, and rock and roll. Tracy, you want to say something about it specifically?
Since you mentioned alcohol, this is something that a lot of people don't know. The drinking age in America is 21, very different from Swaziland. Like you said, a lot of our IB students, it's no secret, we know they go to the Albert Millen, we know they have a couple of drinks. If they do that in the States under 21 and they get caught, they can get arrested. And that is when you will get a telephone call, because you will have to pay for the ambulance to take them to hospital. So
is that because they're going to get beaten by the police, or because they're going to be too drunk? Why would I take them to hospital?
Again, the colleges are very different, and you have what's called a dry campus, or the colleges that alcohol is zero tolerance, and even when you're 21 is not allowed. And you have colleges where drinking is allowed over the age of 21. So again, it's really important to know the rules and regulations of the state that you're going into and the college that you're going to.
Okay, thank you. V, you wanted to say something? I saw your hand, Wulile. I just wondered if V was there. Yeah.
Yeah, I just quickly want to add on. I'm glad, Tracy, that you mentioned that about the alcohol story, because yeah, that's very, very important. You know, exactly what you were saying. And then also, like in one campus, like at COA, you can get hostels that are dry hostel, and the other one is allowed to have whatever substance or whatever the case is. So you need to be aware of that. The other thing that I want to mention is, though, the students immediately think, you know, they're going to earn some money, pocket money, and yes, they have to work out their own tax brackets, how they're going to do that, and it's all online and it's quite strict. And if I'm not mistaken, I talk under correction on this one, you have 2 levels, I think, that you can record your tax money. One is a bit of a lower one is a higher one, so it's on percentage rate. And the advice I would like to give you is to go rather on the high percentage rate. That means you're going to pay in a little bit more, obviously, but you will get some back then later on. But, you know, things can just change overnight, and then they swing it around and said, well, you've reported on the lower income section percentage-wise, sorry, pay in. That did happen to Ruben on the first time, but that's purely also because he got the funds from the, what do you call it, SAS, semester at sea. So, you know, it's all wonderful and great and stuff, but a year later you get taxed on that as well. So students mustn't think they're going to get, what, 1,000 Rand or whatever it is for the year, $1,000, sorry, for the year, and it's pocket money. They definitely must budget that. I always say budget 50% goes back to the tax man, and then whatever you get left is a bonus. So just consider that one. Yeah. And then Wilili, what you were saying about the flight and the what do you call it, credit card? Yeah, perfect. That's exactly what we were advised as well. And then do listen to the advisors from UWC. They do have a lot experience, and with Ruben's side, he had a number of colleges that he could go to, yet the advisor keeps saying to him, no, no. And he had very good offers and quite a lot of them, but he keeps on saying to him no. And I'm so glad we pulled back. In the beginning, I did say, go to this one, it's 100%, you know, the whole story. And he didn't go to that one, but he was very, very happy, and there he is today. It was excellent advice. So just in a nutshell, on my side, I cannot contribute much more to this. We are very unique where we are on COA and very blessed. And then you'll have to excuse me, I have to leave because I've got another appointment to attend to. So, but yeah, all the best. And I think this is an excellent tool to help parents. And anytime you can contact me. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, V. Thanks for your time. Wilila, do you want to add something?
No, my hand had just lingered from the last time.
After the security question, Auntie Lile has asked, I'm just trying to get down. Oops, I missed it. I'm not used to this computer. And how do we find out about what financial package before applying? Can we find out about the financial package from the college before we apply to it?
So Yael, I answered that down. I think Sharon has her hand up. I'm just going to talk from a Waterford point of view. I think you need to apply at the colleges that you are interested in and that you qualify for.
Okay.
Because
sorry,
only
Mr.
then
Lulu,
can you financial aid. And the financial aid is based on means. You cannot go to a college and say to a college, do you give 100% financial aid? The college will only be able to decide that after you have done your financial aid application. And Yael, if you don't mind, Sharon, I know you did have your hand up, but Yael, if you don't mind, can I kind of lead that one into the next question? Because it kind of merges. Could you give information about flights and health insurance for Waterford students who are on scholarship, specifically scholarship students who have to pay their own flights in the nature of health? Are these covered by the Davis? Maybe I just want to clarify, and Nosimilo, I hope you don't mind. I hope you don't feel that I'm doing your job here, just that I do have a lot of experience. I think what a lot of people don't understand is that the financial aid coming from the colleges is not purely a Davis scholarship. And I think this is important because there was a conference held last year that Mr. Lowry and Mr. Storer attended with university admission officers. And one of the things that they were upset about was that all of us at UWC were referring to all the financial aid and the scholarships as the Davis scholarship. The colleges felt like they were not getting recognition for what they were putting in. Now, when you get your financial aid back, and I realize that most of you are not in that position yet, it will actually give you a breakdown. And the Davis Scholarship, there are only 5 colleges that the Davis Scholarship gives $20,000 to. Other than those 5, and I think we're up to 105 now, so about 100 of the other colleges, the Davis Scholarship is only $10,000. So the college is upping the rest of the scholarship for you. And we need to acknowledge that. It is important, and it is something that's causing some problems. Therefore, Davis will say, if you take a UWC student, we guarantee you $10,000, or for the 5 colleges, if you take a UWC student, we guarantee you $20,000. The colleges then look at their own admission process based on their diversity, whatever reasons they want your child, and they will up that scholarship. And they will up it according to means tested. So in other words, you need to fill out your financial application as honest as possible, and they will look and see what you need in order to be able to send your child to that college. I'm going to get a little bit personal here because I've been involved in a lot of these applications and the way people do things. If your family are in a position where you cannot afford to fly your child to a college, and that college really wants your child, and they see it on your financial aid, they will often cover a ticket to get your child to college. What I'm going to say is, please only take that offer should you need it. Because we are aware of students that have had to be turned down from a college because their family genuinely can't afford the flight, and the flight money allocated to that college has been given to other families already, and sometimes families that don't necessarily need it. And this is now coming from the heart of a person that works with scholarship children every day. So I think that kind of answers that question. And then the nature of the health insurance is, like we said, the colleges all give a health insurance. I think they all give round about the same figure for health insurance, and that stands at about $4,000 now. But I think it was Fiona that said that's just a tip. I will be honest, and both my children, any kind of medical stuff that they've had to do, I've had to pay for it. I paid a $200 bill yesterday for a vaccine that was not covered by the health insurance.
Is it a COVID vaccine?
No.
Shame. What about like major accident? Like, I don't know, what if they have a car accident? Is it covered by those insurance? Is it all fully covered, or is it different between each college?
I think each college, Nosimilo, I see you've gone on off mute. Maybe you wanted to answer that.
Yeah, just to answer that one, and I'm going to also speak on it both from the IB advisory position and from personal experience as well. One thing that we always advise people is, if you ever get sick, ask your friend to call you an Uber or a cab. Do not use an ambulance, because your medical aid will not pay for that. If you have an accident, your medical aid is not going to pay for that. I know. So I lived in the States for a bit. So I went to college in Oklahoma and then worked in the US for 2 years, and had a car accident at some point, and insurance did not cover that. So I had like a $3,000, $4,000 bill that I had to take care of. So like a lot of those things, your insurance, the insurance that most of the students will get, the $4,000 insurance that Tracy is speaking about, is the most basic insurance. So it's like, it covers like the basic things. And usually if the school has a medical institution within the campus, that's what it covers. So it's almost like covering the sick pay. So using Waterford as an example, the insurance is going to cover Nesnomvula's fees, and maybe if you have to go get some pain medication in Baban Clinic, but if you have to get your teeth checked, or if you have to get an operation in Baban Clinic, or anything outside of the basic things, it's not going to cover. And the parents will have to cover that. So it's something that usually then ends up costing students quite a bit of money. And so, yeah.
So this is the contingency money that Fiona was talking about. And if I can just give you an example, a friend of my daughter's just recently had to have major surgery. They thought it was appendicitis and they discovered that it was her gallbladder. She's from Palestine. She's got a 4,000 medical bill right now. My daughter has started a GoFundMe page for her, and that's how they're raising the money, because she's well aware that the girl's family will not be able to pay. But the college, they don't have the money either, so they can't, you know, in their defense, they've covered you with a scholarship up to a certain amount on health insurance. They don't have the money to bail her out. So what's going to happen is, forevermore, until she can pay this medical bill, it's sitting on the shoulders of her family. So the contingency planning that Fiona was talking about is crucial. Hopefully you'll never have to use it, but make sure you have it.
That's very interesting. I wonder, a traveler insurance will cover a student? I don't know.
Like I said, Yael, when we looked into that, the costs were just too exorbitant. I suppose if you have an employer that may be willing to take that on as an extra, that might help. But for most of us, it's just unaffordable.
Sharon, what about the UK in health insurance? Is it looking better that side?
It is. It's looking better. So there's the National Health System, NHS. But again, you know, it gives you access to go to any government. So what would be a government hospital? You wouldn't be able to go to a private clinic or anything like that. But to me, it seemed, you know, people in the UK will complain a lot about NHS, but coming from Swaziland and where we're from, to me, it seemed very much like a very comprehensive health system. A student, when you get there, it's one of the things that you do during orientation, where you sign up, excuse me, and you can sign up for whatever general practitioner is the closest to you. So you could have it close to campus or close to wherever you live. And I lived off campus. And so the UK seems to have a better handle for sure on access to just basic healthcare. And then so you sign up and then you don't pay for it. You just go and see a doctor when you need one. So that was my experience there. Yeah.
Okay.
I did want to say something about sexual harassment. Someone had asked about it during when we were talking about security, and I think that it's really important to have a conversation about what that looks like for our children, our students, before they go to the US, and to encourage them to always report, and to never, you know, just have the full conversation with students before they travel, to say, look, this is what measures are put in place, and every university should have ways of reporting. So there could be peer supporters that you can report to. Sometimes they have buddy systems where you can tell a friend. Sometimes they, you know, all campuses should have a counselor for students to go talk to, but just make sure that your student kind of, your child has an idea of, how would I report something that I've seen or something that has happened to me? And that reporting is always okay. Even if you don't have the details, the full details, you were drunk or you feel like you were in the wrong, whatever the case may be. So have those really hard conversations. I imagine, I don't have a child, but I imagine parents don't want to have those conversations, those uncomfortable conversations, or they don't want to imagine that their children would be in those situations. But please have those conversations, because in the event that something does happen, you want your child to know that they're supported and that it's okay to speak up.
Thank you very much. We're running about an hour and a half. Let's just have a look. Let me go quickly. What is the Davis Scholarship and who gets it? I'm not sure what's the name here, but please do speak to, if you have that booklet that Mr. Storer gave us at the beginning of the year, or if you IB1, I'm not sure if at what stage IB1 get it. There's a lot of information about it. The school basically is a philanthrope that supports students of UWC that goes into the USA. So if your child is from Waterford and is going to USA, then Davis is applied to you. Anywhere else around the world, you on your own. Any WK students in Princeton, USA? Yes, there are. Ella is there, but I would refer you back to the link that Nusimilia put at the beginning of our ambassadors. And if there's no ambassador in Princeton, let me know directly, and Ella Pang is there, and I'm sure you can get her details from school. Sharon had it up. When will the current IB1s apply? So from our, so what's happening from an IB parent, two parents experience, we're starting applying basically when the exams finished. This year, our kids were very lucky because they didn't do the exams, the final exams, and therefore they finished their exams in September. And since then they started, but it's more important not when you start to apply, it's when you need to apply, when your deadline, and each university is different. It also depends if you apply in an early decision or late decisions. And then, so the early decision, I think, was 15 November. And people had to be very quick, but the normal is starting, the way I see it, it's starting from mid-Jan, then February, and then March. So what you need to find out is when is the deadline for the application, then you know when you need to start. And it's a process. The financial aid is a long process. The kids have to write an essays, that's a process. Don't leave it to the last moment. It's, you want to think about stuff, and also school helps. Mr. Store asks you to send your essay to him, and then he replies back, and you can go and change it a bit. So definitely make time. I think usually, I'm not sure, but maybe Nosemile or Tracy, you know, I think usually they probably would have started now in November. I think just our kids started September. Am I right?
It's usually
just no time on a normal year to try and apply while you're studying to your final exams.
Usually at the beginning of IB2, Mr. Storer will start talking about the application process.
Yeah, it's very clear from Storer. And then for IB1 parents, please do look at that book that Mr. Storer gives the kids. I can't remember if we got it in IB1 or IB2, but as soon as you get that booklet, please read it. We didn't read it. And for example, for application to Canada, we missed the school's deadline, and it's a shame. So just read it and ask yourself a lot of questions, and then start asking school, Nusimilo or Mr. Storer for answers. Can we have contact details of International Relation Office? So Tracy already answered that. Each college has its own international relation office. It's not school, it's not WK. Yeah, no, anybody, is there anybody with advice on Canada? Is there anyone here with advice on Canada? Nobanto, what exactly do you want an advice for? Can you be a bit more specific? No, Nobanto? Not sure what advice you want on Canada, but maybe you'll find it later. Any panelists or any parents would like to say something that we did not discuss that it's very, I'm sure we can sit here and discuss the whole night, because we haven't even discussed how to look at the financial aid forms, but it's not for today. Anything you have, like the last tip, maybe just last words of something maybe cheery, not just like health insurance accidents and my child abandoned in town with no transport. Something good, Fiona. Finish with something positive.
Yeah, I'd just like to say it was an interesting experience for us, because I didn't realize beforehand how the universities actually know your child through the application process. I mean, they actually spend time going through applications. They take it very seriously. They give it a lot of scrutiny and integrity. And what Kerry-Ann found when she was working in the admissions office is she said, "Mom, I realized how I got in here." And on her application essay, she did quite a heartfelt essay, and it was quite a personal essay. And from that, they actually got to know a little bit about her. And she said it wasn't just about her marks at school. It wasn't just about her SAT score. It was about her as a person. And I think I found that quite encouraging, that the universities were actually taking enough time to get to know who the kids were that were coming onto campus, and we're giving the benefit to the person. And also maybe for the junior grades is to also realize that they are looking for contributors to the world, looking for international citizens who are going to make a contribution in life. They don't just want the academic kids. They don't just want the run-of-the-mill children. And Waterford gives them that. The CAS program, the fact that the children are involved in things outside of school and that is actually held in a higher value than we realized beforehand. So the kids are very focused on their marks, but there's actually a lot more to it than just the mark. Obviously, you do need to do as well as you can. But I also think that they are looking for contributors as when they leave college. They're not just looking for somebody who's going to be brilliant academically. And I think bear that in mind for the students as well. It's who they are, and they do look at it.
That's excellent. Thanks very much, Fiona. Willile, and then Andy. Willile, can you start?
Okay, so 2 points from my side. The one is the pick-me-upper that you asked for, and the other one is also just a bit of advice on something that I thought about as a parent sending your child there. So I'll start with that one, the damper, and then the good one. So understand the law of the land when it pertains to your child being an international student, so a foreigner in that country, particularly with what we have seen now. I mean, when COVID hit, schools closed. At the same time, borders were closing. At the same time, embassies were closing. So you need to understand what it is that all of that will mean to you, and also your, what do they call them, your H1s, your H1 and your HBs, all of that stuff that has to do with the politics of the land, how that then trickles down to affecting a foreign student in that land. You need to keep on top of that. So that's the one thing. Moving on to the good stuff. When the whole conversation now that Fiona was talking about global citizens, these universities look for people that will then become ambassadors of their own institutions. So, for example, Dema did a semester in France, in one of her, because she majored also in French cultural studies. She went over for a whole semester, and all of that was catered for by the college. Sure, they've got relations, but for that kind of exposure, you already have the fact that your child has got the entry to go into an environment that's outside of Swaziland, Africa, etc. You already have an A child, and that is good enough for some. But these children, the children that you have the benefit of raising, are children that are set to be absolutely amazing. So when you're doing your applications, or perhaps when they get into choosing their majors, maybe that's something they need to look at as well. Where can what I'm doing now take me to outside of the US? Because then all of that is still paid for if you're an aide.
Thank you. Andy, would you like to add some stuff?
Sure, thanks. I just had 2 points. Having put 2 kids into and one out of college in the US thus far, I thought these might be helpful things to know. One is when Fiona was talking about the importance of the essay, I think that's very, very hard to overestimate. It is tremendously important if your student is going to go to a fairly selective college for them to have a really good set of essays. And that's because most of these universities could fill every slot with 4 or 5 students. Their acceptance rate is going to be 20% or below. So they really do want to choose their students carefully to make the mix of people that they're really most interested in. And that comes through your essays. And the reason I stress that is, even if you're an IB1 parent now, or even younger than that if need be, you can go on the website now for the so-called common application. The majority of US colleges, not all, but the majority participate in the common application. And you can go on that website and you can see the essay topics that the students have to answer this year. Those topics don't change much from year to year. So if your student is thinking a little bit ahead and maybe over the holidays has a little time, take a look at those essays and realize, I'm going to have to answer my essay. So you can get a head start just by seeing what the questions are this year. because they're not going to be too dramatically different for next year. But the better your essay, the better chance you have of getting into the place that you really want to go. So I would encourage some advanced thought on that. Secondly, if you as parents or as students want a little bit of extra information about some of the universities and colleges, there's a website called bigfuture.org. And it has information on every single American university and college. And I'm sorry that this is tailored to the US, but that's the way the Big Future is set up. But in the US, there are more than 3,400 universities and colleges. There's no way to know them all. Now, luckily, if you're going to be relying on the Shelby Davis program, they've narrowed your list to about 100. But if you go on this website, you'll see statistics about the size of the school. So you'll have the range from the College of the Atlantic at 380 or whatever V said, all the way up to places like the University of Oklahoma, which will have 40,000 students. So you can look at size. You can look if they're urban, like New York University, or if they're completely rural, like Bates College or Middlebury. You can see things about the kinds of courses they have. You can even select by an area of college, and you can filter by the topic that you'd like to study. So that bigfuture.org is a way perhaps for you to look at your students' shortlist and then maybe explore a little with them to learn a bit more about the schools. But I just think those two resources could be helpful as you and your student are thinking through the options.
Thanks, Andy. What was the website you were saying? I didn't manage to write it down. Or can you put it in the...
Sure, I'll put it in the thing, but the website for the university background info is bigfuture.org, O-R-G. And then the common application, you would just have to Google common application and it would pop up, but it's the set of essays that every student will typically have to write. Other universities might require you to do a supplemental one, like they'll set you an additional topic, but that's usually on their website. And again, you could go look at that essay topic and get a sense of what might be coming.
Thanks, you, Andy. Tracy, your word of...
I'm just going to give my light-hearted piece to say, yes, we focused quite a bit on the negatives, but let your kids go. It's an awesome experience. As much as it's a culture shock for them, I do believe, like Fiona said, that in some ways we do build resilience in our children. I was very worried about my daughter. She's the baby of the family, overindulged. She is having the most awesome experience. She's loving it. She has no desire to come home. She was locked down during COVID and had to work to pay for her accommodation and even made the most of that. We haven't seen each other for about 18 months now. It's been tough. I never thought we would be in that position. So I just want to say to the parents that were a little bit like me and maybe helicopter and protective, let them go. It's the most awesome experience. Like Welile was saying, she just on Friday went for an interview for an internship for next semester at one of the top law firms in North Carolina. And we couldn't be prouder of her. So let your kids go and make the most of this awesome experience.
Thank you. Sharon, did you give us a positive note? I can't remember. And not let you go on without a positive note too.
Of course. So two things. I think first, just a word of encouragement that the IB program actually is one of the most comprehensive college prep programs. If your student has been able to go through IB and survive those 2 years, they are ready, So that's just, just know that your child has developed the mental acumen, intellectual capacity if they've gone through IB and succeeded. So they're ready. And then the next thing is just from what everyone has been saying, and on top of it being an awesome experience, it's also a growth experience. And I think that, from when I left Waterford, I barely spoke. Like I was very, very shy at Waterford. And I think what going to the US and studying in the US allowed me to do was to find my voice and to be a person who kind of was in a space where I had to not be in my comfort zone. And so it was a growth process. And I think there's a lot of beauty that kind of comes with seeing, you know, your child kind of flourish from that experience. And I've seen it from my personal life, but I've also seen it with other students that we've sent to the US. And, you know, some of them come, you know, they leave again, they're very shy, they're very timid, they're from, you know, rural Swaziland, you know, very, just not confident in themselves. And then you throw them out there and they come back and they can have whole conversations with you. They can stand in front of people and talk to people. And it's just amazing to kind of see that kind of flourishing. And I really, without a doubt, know that every student, every child that you send out there, on top of them enjoying their time there, will find hopefully purpose and also a voice, and then come back, you know, and find whatever corner of society that they want to be involved in. But let your children go.
Thank you very much. Tembeka is asking about visas. I presume you'll have to figure out your
chat, Yael.
Yeah.
I'm answering it in the chat.
All right, thank you very much. More questions gonna come up. You're welcome to engage Nusimilo. She's under engagement at Waterford. You can ask, I'm sure you can ask Mr. Store. Tracy is on your principal at Waterford. And maybe we should, and if we get more and more questions, maybe we'll have another something at the beginning of next year or something like this. I'd like to thank Fiona very much, Sharon, Wilile, Tracy, V for being here earlier. I think it was amazing. I learned a lot of new things. I haven't even think about insurance before. And for me, it was a big eye opener. I have compiled, with the help of Andy and his wife Tina, we've compiled a kind of a document with a lot of points that we could figure out. I will add the points we've discussed today. I was writing as we were talking, and then we'll make it available for the IBs and for school in the next week or so, because I think now it's becoming a booklet just now, and it's things that are not in Mr. Store booklets. It's really life experience. Happy holidays. Thank you, Waterford, for having us for 7 or 6 or anything years and let us and help us finishing this year. Thank you, parents, for coming today. Thank you, Nusimilo, for making it happen. I wish all of us a great relief, lots of health, keep safe, keep masks, that's your mask. And yeah, we can keep that conversation going on and on. That's from me. Thank you.